Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. William Shatner performs with the National Symphony Orchestra as part of Ben Folds' Declassified series at the Kennedy Center on Friday, April 29th. I spoke to Shatner and Folds about their out-of-this-world concert, inspired by Shatner's recent trip into outer space on Blue Origin. Hey, William Shatner and Ben Folds, thanks so much for joining us again on WTOP.
Well, you know, Ben and I have known each other a long time, and we've had some wonderful experiences together. For me, and we'll ask him what his feeling was. One of the great theatrical performing moments of my life was making an album with him. We called it Has Been, and it was very successful. And it was very successful because this magnificent musician just brought his musical imagination to everything. And here's something that I remember vividly. We did it in Nashville, and he was living in Nashville at the time, and making albums and records and going on tour, of course, from Nashville. And he said to me, you know, Nashville, like Hollywood, has at its beck and call all these musicians. They all live around Nashville. So if you need a drummer with a special, I got call Paul here. Hey, Paul, come on down. And Paul comes down and does his drums. And then somebody with a world famous guitarist is 3 blocks away, and he comes. And that's what he was doing. That's what Ben was doing. He was calling these people up, these virtuoso musicians, to come and help us with this album. And people would appear, and it'd be an hour, they'd do a lick, and then they'd go. And he fashioned an album called Has Been, which is a lot of people like very much.
And it had Common People was on that one, right?
That's right, exactly. Yeah. And that was his idea. He said, "You got," because we were writing the songs, and he said, "Well, there's a song that I like. It's Common People. Yeah, I don't know it." And we did it, and he brought in Joe
Jackson.
Joe Jackson. He brought in Joe Jackson to do the vocals, and then I did the vocals as I do them. And the two of us together, it was magic. But it took forever to do because Joe Jackson warms up. It takes about 6 hours.
He does.
Yeah.
We're talking the Joe Jackson?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. That's a combo right there. Well, yeah, I mean, you both have been joined us. I think actually this is like your third time for each of you on WTOP. So you're the 3 timers each. But talk about this exact concert that's going to be at Kennedy Center. It's part of your Declassified thing on April 29th. But of all the Declassifieds you've done, I mean, having Mr. William Shatner has got to be at the top, man.
Oh yeah, no, this is really special. It's doing what music is supposed to do. To me, it's like, I mean, if you think about music at the end of the day, for, you know, more tribal versions of ourselves way back thousands and thousands of years ago, or even now, like at the end of the day, you debrief, you dance and sing about things, and that puts it into your system. This is one of those times where instead of it being around a campfire with a guitar or a couple of drums, what we've got is the National Symphony Orchestra, an incredible group of orchestrators, and William Shatner, all here to just kind of talk and feel ourselves around what's happening to our planet. And it's very useful. It's not hippy dippy. This is important stuff. And you know, we leave it out on the stage too. Bill's written the lyrics. He's co-written lyrics with a poet friend of his. And you know, I've got my favorite orchestrators putting together something that only happens once on stage. You don't even want to know what it costs to put on something like this. And it's doable because it's the Kennedy Center, whose job is to lead the nation and the country in this kind of programming. So yeah, look, I could go on and on about it, but it's something you'll see once. This kind of thing never happens, and it's it really. I think you're messing up if you live in the DC area and you don't get yourself out to this. This is a special moment.
Oh, once in a lifetime thing.
Interestingly enough, I presumed when I said yes that it was a television show and they would televise it. They're not. They're not televising it. They're not really recording it. They're putting it away for their archives. So I have decided that I will make a television. I'm asking them to make a television, paying for a television show and a recording, so this won't be lost. And I haven't talked to Ben about that because I mean, I've talked to the people at the National Symphony Orchestra, but Ben and I have finalized any talks, which I want to do, about what to do with this recording of visual and audible recording of this material. I just it's too important to let go.
Are we thinking like a PBS, or what are we thinking?
Well, we might. It's exactly the letters that I thought would work, but it depends what we have when we're left and what permissions we have in order to be able to promulgate it. But it won't be lost and put in dusty bins. It'll be out there on a more commercial basis. My hope is.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully, yes, so that everyone can watch it and stream it. But in the meantime, you got to get out to the Kennedy Centers. You got to see this live and in person because it's a once in a lifetime thing. Like both.
That's exactly right. You know, people have asked me a great deal about this journey I took into space and the emotions it caused in me, and it's impossible. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to sum up the complexity of what I felt when I landed. But I had time with Robert Chernow, this wonderful poet, lyricist, and I worked out what it was I did and felt, and we've put it to music. It's called So Fragile, So Blue, and it's the key song. It's the monumental song among the 6 that I'll be doing that defines what you and I are talking about in space. So there is this wondrous orchestra, this National Symphony Orchestra, with these wonderfully talented people who've written orchestrations to make this music happen. And Ben brought us together, and it's going to be a happening. I have written, and I've asked Robert Chernow to look over the remarks that I wrote, but my opening sentence, I think, will be, music is everywhere. That's the opening sentence of my performance, and then go out to illustrate how music is everywhere. These weird instruments in the 70 instruments, they're weird. Bassoons are weird, man. I mean,
True.
you know,
They are.
String instruments you can understand, but then there are brass who made that brass? That in itself is a wonderful musical journey. Where did these instruments come from? Who makes music like that?
It's even more, to extend that miracle, the fact that it has evolved, that the symphony orchestra can come together like that, even just the protocol, getting them all in the room. Imagine organizing 90 people in a rock band to bring them into a garage to play. And I always liken the symphony orchestra to the greatest symbol of civilization, because it has evolved alongside civilization, and it does what civilization is supposed to do, which it organizes people to be something greater than all of the parts.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and the symphony orchestra's survival as a symbol is very important alongside the survival of civilization. And if you imagine just the miracle of life on Earth, imagine the improbability of that life being civilized.
Yeah.
And it's astronomical. You just can't even imagine.
Civilized, and then add a layer of music to that. Civilized and then musical. You whistle, you sing, you tom-tom, you walk, dance, and all of a sudden, music is a part of your world, and it's part of every animal's world. Every living thing makes some kind of sound that if you were able to hear it and amplify it, you could bring rhythm and melody to it, because all life is making music.
Wow.
You really do need to talk to Dr. Roger Payne sometime. You two have so much to talk about, because he discovered whale songs, and he also discovered that they have form. and they have style and they evolve. The form is very similar to sonata form in a symphony or in a piece of music, and it evolves over time, and each ocean has their own style and song, and we don't even know what they're talking about or who they're talking to, but it has so much form and intention that you have to figure that something really important is going on. They've been here a lot longer than we have.
Ben,
Yes, sir.
the coincidence of you talking about the guy who did
Yeah.
Sounds of Wales. I was entertaining in Orlando this weekend, and they asked me about this film of Star Trek that had whales in it.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I heard this album all those years ago of whale sounds, and I was playing around with D.H. Lawrence's poem about whales called Whales Weep Not, and I put the sounds of those whales as music for the lyrics of Whales Weep Not, and I was asked to perform it at the Hollywood Bowl in front of 18,000 people, and I had never done it in front of anybody, all just in my living room. So now I'm in front of 18,000 people, and the sounds of whales start, wee, woo, ah, and everybody whirls around. What is that? And I begin, and it was very successful. I used his sounds, and you just finished talking to this wonderful man who recorded all those sounds.
He's amazing. Yeah. Emma's family are really close with them. So I've known him for a little while. He's an impressive fella. And
is he a naturalist? Is he a scientist? What is he?
Well, he's a marine biologist. I mean, he's made all kinds of crazy discoveries, like the brains of moths, how they work in relation to
the brains of what?
Moths. The bug moth.
The bug moth, yeah.
You would love this guy. He like, check this out. Here's what he discovered when he was like 23 years old. There are just like 6 cells in a moth's brain, and 3 of them are used to understand the sound around the wings, because they have wings flapping in their ears, and you can't hear anything with that going on, so it strobes.
Wow.
Crazy stuff. This
weekend, I learned that moths, butterflies, I believe they're related, are listening to the sounds of bats in their echolocation.
What? Okay? Seriously?
Because they're eating the moths. They're flying, echolocating the moths, and the moths are repeating those sounds and evading the click by repeating their click.
Really?
Oh, 8 cells. I mean, God is unbelievable.
It really is. I mean, the more you know about how things work, it just opens up so much more stuff.
And then just to finish that story up, I ended up in Vancouver, and the sound went out, and they had misadvertised this concert, which was like John Williams' concert. So they had misadvertised it. A lot of bike guys with leather jackets and motorcycles came to the concert, and the sound went out, so there was no sounds of the deep. So I was facing this raucous audience with, they say the sea is cold, and the guys are saying, "Get off the stage!" They're yelling, "Get off the." It was one of the most disastrous moments of my theatrical life because the sound went out in Vancouver.
Are you sure? Was it the moths or the bats maybe that caused it?
It might have been the moth.
One of my favorite stories of yours of things gone wrong stage. I hope you remember this. I think I heard you tell it once. Is needing to grab a knife and there only being something like a spoon or something. Was this Shakespeare?
No, a twist, a corkscrew.
You had to screw him.
So I screwed him to death. Right?
That is the best. I love that.
Awesome. That's awesome.
That's a good memory.
And you know what Bill was saying about music is everywhere. It's another way that William Shatner is brilliant, and we need him because music is everywhere is literally true in the brain. Speech takes up two places that are about the size of 2 little walnuts. One is called the Broca's area, which means you can form words. It's tiny. But what happens when you play music into a brain and you put the electrodes on, the entire brain lights up like a Christmas tree. A scientist friend of mine says the brain lights up like a Christmas tree because sound and music are planted all over the brain, and we understand that better than anything.
Wow.
Wow.
That's beautiful. That's a concert right there. Ben just used his musical imagination. He is a forerunner in all this, and this declassified series that is at Kennedy Center, which, just to repeat, we're going to be there on Friday, April 29th at 9 o'clock at Kennedy Center. You should come down to the theater because it's not being broadcast. It's performed for the audience only, and it's going to be a happening. So come on down. But Ben Folds and his musical imagination from when he was a child, virtuoso, is a most remarkable human being, an American treasure. No, you are. You know, some people come along every so often and you say, here is something we need to cup it in our hands and say, here's a treasure. Here, I've discovered this on the beach, this beautiful stone, this beautiful thing that exists only. There'll be others coming along that came along, that will come along, but right now, there's Ben Folds, American genius. Yeah.
Wow. There you go,
Well,
Ben Folds.
We're gonna be in trouble soon because we're just gonna send this mutual admiration back and forth. But
Keep it going. I don't care. I got all the time in the world.
It's the opposite of a roast. Let me say about Bill. Last night I happened to look online to see Henry Rollins' account of our recording session.
No
have you ever seen
kidding.
that?
No, I haven't.
You'll die laughing. It's so funny. Henry's so funny. He did this spoken, he does his spoken word concerts. And years ago, probably before you guys started going to, started doing your football dates together, because
Right.
come over to your place.
Yeah.
He did a bit on stage, which was recorded for some special, about what happened. And I don't know if you remember this, but your friend from Priceline flew down scallops. Do you remember that?
No.
Dude, it's so eccentric. No one else does this. Okay. You had your buddy fly down scallops from.
Oh, right. Yes, at a restaurant. Yeah. He brought 3 bags of scallops. That's right.
That he fished himself.
Yes, he scooped he was walking around.
So, the thing is
while we were recording.
Dude went deep sea diving for scallops in the morning while we're recording. And by the time Henry landed he didn't mention this, but he'd been flying for 52 hours from a USO concert in the Middle East so he could play for the troops. And he showed up with almost no sleep at all. He meets Bill there. He meets me there at the studio. We start to record. And then Bill says, we've got to break for dinner because my friend just flew down from the Eastern Seaboard with fish, with scallops that he caught himself.
Wow.
And that guy he loved women, and he couldn't tear himself away from women. So he's in Central Park on a bike, and a beautiful blonde goes by on a bike, and he turns around quickly and he chases her. He falls off his bike. He lands on his head. He's taken to a hospital, and he never recovers. He dies in the hospital chasing a girl.
Oh my God.
Is that like the wildest thing you've ever heard?
Wow, this is the same cat that I met?
Same guy. He died.
Oh my God.
He died by a blow on the head trying to find that blonde. Man, is that ironic?
Wow. But there you are eating the scallops.
And there we are eating the scallops.
And he's dead.
And he had taken me scallop hunting when I was up there for something or other, and we're walking around waiting, using a broom, picking up scallops, using a scallop knife, and taking off a little tiny scallop and putting it in. They are incredible.
Wow.
So
I guess the scallops,
anyway, yeah,
the
scallop
scallops. I
stories.
wonder if they were
Would be-
making music like the whales make the music, all together.
Well, you got to know that they do. They got their little. They've got their little clappers. Surely there's a rhythm, eh? So the scallops all going. Scallops doing rhythmic scallop things.
Oh yeah, it's the famous scallop backbeat. Everyone knows about that.
It's a scalloping, like yeah.
Right.
Well, you mentioned Mr. Shatner. You mentioned there's some weird instrumentation, bassoons and stuff. Was in this Kennedy Center thing? Is the idea is that like to create like
No,
another
no, no.
otherworldly thing?
Well, no, it's an attempt. I was asked the camera crew that's going to film it ultimately said, "What would you like for an opening?" And I thought, well, all these weird instruments. That the opening of the show might be close-ups of as the musicians are tuning up, and there are all these weird shapes that only Ben Folds knows what they do. The giant drums, timpanis, bassoons, weird shaped instruments. I mean, whoever thought of a French horn with all its circles and things?
Right.
And apparently the most difficult instrument in the orchestra is a French horn. Well, why? Why not just
Who came
So
up with that to begin with?
who came up with that? That's my idea of an opening of weird. Music is weird. Music
Right.
is everywhere.
You're right. No, you are right, and each one of those is its own evolution along its own path. One of the greatest books on music, in my opinion, ever written was by Rimsky-Korsakov, late 19th century Russian composer, and he spent most of his life writing about how the instruments evolved for the orchestra, and he couldn't accomplish it because it was going to be too long, too many volumes, so he changed gears and he just wrote about orchestration itself. But he would have thought that Bill was exactly right about this. He was fascinated with the evolution of all these instruments. I think the French horn probably came like from the ophicleide or something like that.
Wow. And then so in between this instrumentation, Mr. Shatner, is it your lyrics? Is it you on stage? Is it like spoken word kind of a thing?
Yes,
or are you singing?
I push back on spoken word because that's poetry.
Right,
and this has a vast element of music added to it. And there's a poem or a lyric called Are You the Bayou? So a bayou, like in Louisiana, has a stillness to it and a beauty, but lurking underneath that stillness are sticks and snakes. And so you could liken it to a human being. Like, look at that beautiful girl, and then there's something evil underneath. So there's a song called Are You the Bayou? And there's a musicality to the Are You the Bayou? There's something, and then so the orchestration and the orchestration's basically a 70-piece orchestra playing the funeral march in New Orleans. So there's the surface of the poem and the music underneath, and yet it's the word, but it's music.
I kind of share Bill's sentiment about the spoken word thing. I think that cans it a little too much. You imagine a guy playing bongos with in a coffee shop or something. Bill actually, interestingly, is somewhere between singing and speaking. And I know that from recording him that if it was quote spoken word, you could pretty much edit anything he said over anything that was being played. They would be coincidental, collisionary sort of pieces that sort of play parallel to each other. In Bill's case, I found that I could not edit him or move him front or back, because even though it sounded like he was just speaking, he has a rhythmic sense, and he's had a relationship with music since forever, since he made his first record in the 60s, and it's a very musical record. Yeah. So he's been making music since before I was born. Mm-hmm. And it is musical, and so I don't know what we're going to call it, but it is somewhere. It's music. It's symphonic music. I think the closest thing that I could compare it to would be Lincoln Portrait. So Lincoln Portrait by Aaron Copland, and many famous. I bet you, Bill, have you ever done Lincoln?
Yeah. And Peter and the Wolf and all those things.
He's done it
Yeah,
all.
it's closer to that lineage than
Okay.
anything.
So it transcends mere spoken word into something elevated, musical.
I'd like to think that. That's
Yeah.
my
We
hope,
think
that you'll think that when you hear it.
Awesome. Well, you mentioned earlier, before we hop off here, we do have to mention what you meant, what you alluded to earlier, that some of these lyrics are inspired by, your famous Blue Origin trip, the whole Jeff Bezos outfit up into space last October. I guess you became are you the oldest to go in space still?
I hate that phrase. I mean, every so often somebody says, "You're the oldest guy who went into space," and they applaud. Now, what are you applauding? Applauding my age? That's I had nothing to do with it.
Right. Well, I want to know. I mean, it's almost impossible to even put into words, let alone a radio soundbite. But just what is it like getting up there and you turn around and you see something that was a blue sky is suddenly smaller than your thumbnail?
he's going to tell you with the orchestra. That's the only way he can do this.
You have to come out and you have to see it to see it.
I specifically address that question in "So Fragile, So Blue," and the orchestra addresses it musically.
Wow. Well, was it did I also read, didn't Gene Roddenberry's, didn't they send his ashes into space too? Like,
I don't think it was his. It was one of the actors went up there, and I think this might be apocryphal. I think the rocket crashed, and his ashes came back down to Earth somewhere, and they couldn't find them. It's really ironic. Yeah, something really, really weird.
I had no idea.
One of the songs, one of the 6 songs is what to do with those with your body when you die. And I believe, we haven't rehearsed it, but I believe Ben is going to accompany me on the piano for that song. The title of the song is "I Want to Be a Tree."
And on the piano used to be a tree.
Oh, perfect. That's perfect. Full circle.
It was a would-be.
You brought it full circle. Mr. Shatner, thank you so much for doing this. And wow, hearing you and Ben go back and forth is amazing. I'm just sitting back, just soaking it all in.
It was lovely. I love talking to him. Thank you so much for having me. It's Friday night, April 29th at 9:00 at Kennedy Center. Come and see it.
Yeah, to hear all those instruments with the NSO and all the pieces working in unison, it'll truly be the needs of the many outweighing the needs of the few on stage.
I hope so. Take care of yourself.
Thanks so much for doing this.
Take care, my dear. I will see you in a few days, huh?
All right, we'll see you in DC.
Yep. Bye-bye.
I also previously spoke to Shatner when he came to AwesomeCon in D.C. in 2015, sharing memories of the late Leonard Nimoy and his thoughts on J.J. Abrams' Star Trek reboot. Thanks for coming on WTOP.
Well, it's a pleasure. I mean, you're the #1 radio station in D.C.
And how did you know that? I mean, everyone here knows it.
It says it on this piece of paper that's looking at me here.
It's the truth, I assure you.
Well, I'm glad to be not only with you, but on the #1 radio station. So, AwesomeCon, it should be awesome.
Have you ever done AwesomeCon before, or was this your first time?
No. I haven't, and I'm looking forward to it. Washington is one of the great cities. I've been there several times sightseeing or one thing or another. But this will be on stage, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so what can we expect? You'll be on stage. Will you be doing sort of a routine? Will there be autograph sessions, or how does that?
Routine, right? My stand-up.
Hey, man, if anyone can do it, you can.
Well, no, autographs, pictures, and then I get up on stage and I talk to the audience, and we have a great time. And the maybe the purest form of enjoyment I get out of going to a Comic-Con is the time I spend on stage with the audience. We connect, and they tell me what they want to hear, and I tell them what I want them to hear, and we have a time together.
Exactly. I mean, you do similar events every year, but this year will probably be a little bit extra special. It's been an emotional, 3 months. You lost your friend Leonard Nimoy about 3 months ago.
It's something to lose a guy you've known 50 years, shared so much time, but not just time, pressured time that was filled with dire consequences of a bad script or an ugly director or something that went wrong, and of course all the good things, the successes, and then all the laughs that Leonard and I shared on stage and at dinners and at home. So it's a real hunk out of your life. A chunk is eliminated out of your life. I have missed him from the moment he left, and will continue to do so.
Absolutely, and in a way, you're lucky to have you guys frozen in time on screen so often.
Well, it's strangely that you should say that. I was someplace this past weekend, and getting up and getting ready in the morning, and somehow I was on a station where they were playing one of the Star Trek movies that J.J. Abrams directed,
Yeah.
and on the screen appeared Leonard, latter-day Leonard, and I'd had a line. I'd seen the film before, of course, but I had a line for him in which I said, you're old when you go back in time, and you're still old." And it came to mind that I got a big laugh from him on that line as I was watching him frozen in time that morning, this Saturday morning. I saw him. It was like a ghostly presence. It must be very strange for friends and relatives of actors who have film on screen that suddenly they come on screen as a child, maybe as a younger man,
Right.
or even as an old man in the last of their years, and suddenly they appear on screen as they were when you last remember them. It's weird.
It's weird, but it's part of the magic and beauty of it, I suppose. You mentioned the new films. Are you happy with the direction it's going, or have you enjoyed watching, Chris Pine, Kirk out?
He's wonderful. Chris Pine's wonderful actor, wonderful looking guy. JJ, I think, has got a hold of the secret of making Star Trek a popular success. It's a ride. He directs so well these action sequences, and you go along with the ride, the Star Trek ride, and it's borne out by the fact that his box office far exceeds any of the movies that I was in.
Yeah, well, it's adjusted for inflation. I don't know about all that, but
Inflation, both currency and ego, I hope.
Exactly. I don't know if they track it like that. They should. Is it hard to believe for you that, I guess next year will be 50th anniversary, right?
We're
TV's...
planning things for the 50th anniversary. No, it's unimaginable. A blink of an eye. I looked around, and I was Captain Kirk, and the next time I looked, I wasn't.
You always will be, my friend. Always will be.
Thank you.
What do you guys have? You said you're planning
Well,
stuff.
I'm trying to devise a show for the 50th anniversary, so I got lots of talks on that. When I'm ready, I'll call you and let you know.
We'll appreciate the update. You said it went by like a blink in the eye. Can you remember just before? This is obviously your major career role. Can you remember just before '66? You were doing Alfred Hitchcock Presents and Twilight Zone and Judgment at Nuremberg with all those big actors frozen in time.
I was doing quite well. I was starring on Broadway and movies, and I was going along. So, yes, I do remember prior. I remember getting a phone call saying, come on and take a look at this pilot that we've made called Star Trek that NBC didn't buy, but they said recast it. We'd like you to do the role of the captain. And I went to see the pilot, and it was very good. I was enthralled, and I said, yeah, I'll do this.
How do you think all that early work on Broadway, Shakespeare, and then doing plays like A Shot in the Dark, and then the TV programs we mentioned, and even Judgment at Nuremberg, how did that help you cut your teeth, and so you were ready by the time this big career role happened?
Well, I'm Canadian, and I had been in Canadian. I'd been acting all my life in amateur theater in Montreal from a very young age on. And then the college stuff that I did a lot of. And while I was doing the college stuff, I was doing semi-professional theater. And then when I graduated university there, I spent 4 years in Canada doing repertory and stock and festivals. So I was a seasoned theater actor by the dint of all this work long before I came to the United States. So I had sharpened my teeth in Canada on doing a play a week just about for 5 years.
They're very sharp teeth at that point. So I mean, bringing it full circle back to AwesomeCon, which celebrates pop culture in many facets. For even folks that may not even know you as the Star Trek, as hard as it is to believe, everything you do in pop culture seems to turn to gold. Whether it's The Practice or Boston Legal on TV or Tech War novels or Brad Paisley music video or and any number of things, you seem to just kind of bring this good-natured spirit that makes you kind of a lovable figure no matter what medium. My personal favorite is you with the laughing gas on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. How well do you remember that one?
I do because of Will. Yeah, well, it's just something's there and it sounds like fun, and I'll go have some fun doing it and try and do it well, and if it's for laughs, try and get a laugh. I just sort of blunder around, and I don't know. I don't have a plan. I keep hearing about people who have plans. The upward mobility and downward, and it's a sideways move. I have no idea what they're talking about.
Maybe the plan's already written for you, and you just...
Well, that's the point. I mean, if you think you have control of your life, you're sadly mistaken. That truth doesn't seem to occur to many people until too late.
Absolutely. Well, at least on your near-term plan, we can plan on seeing you at AwesomeCon. And
well done, Jason.
Yeah, you like that little segue?
Yeah, I loved it. And I'll be there, and I'll be looking for your listening audience, and hoping that we can connect.
Absolutely. And, seeing as we are the number one station in D.C., do you mind giving us a little, WTOP, The Final Frontier?
This is WTOP, FM, The Final Frontier.
We spoke again in 2016 when Shatner came to D.C.'s Warner Theater.
Jason, what a pleasure to talk to you.
Mr. Shatner, thanks for talking to us again. You might not even remember, but we talked to you. You came for AwesomeCon, and you joined us, I guess it was last summer.
Well, it's been a year too long. I'm glad we've covered that brief period of time. Nothing much has happened to me. What about you?
Lots of stuff. Yeah, lots of stuff. But, we missed you, and I'm sure you missed us, too. It's okay.
I did indeed, and I'm going to be at the Warner Theater, and I hope you'll be there, Jason.
I want to get into the show because it sounds hilarious and awesome. But before we do, seeing as this is D.C. and our football team just got knocked out, Kirk Cousins has been called Captain Kirk all season.
And I've been called Captain Cousins. It's the strangest metamorphosis.
Man.
And is Cousins good or what?
They really turned it on there in the last.
They turned it on. Yes, sir. That's great. Too bad I'm for the old man at the Broncos, but that's another thing.
Well, we'll always have Shanahan. That'll be our common.
Right, and I can't believe that the Rams are coming to Los Angeles. Did you hear the news today?
Yeah, I heard the news today. Oh boy, yeah, I heard it. But do you any words of advice on how to be a better Captain Kirk going into season 2?
Yes, press a lot of weight, do squats, and do aerobics, and then jump up and down for 15 minutes.
Is that what you did on the Enterprise?
No. I lay down a lot. Tell Kirk Cousins to lay down and rest.
Awesome. Well, hopefully your little Vulcan salute will be for victory next year for us. Are you going to try to weave that into your DC show here at Warner?
No. No. I'm liable to be stoned. No. I mean, people will throw stones at me. I don't mean stone. I mean throw stones.
Double meanings.
Double meaning. I should have chosen another word now that you've got a hold of it. No, I am going to do my Broadway show that got great notices and has been doing so well with audiences all across the country and all across Canada and all across Australia as well. Over a period of time, I've toured, and it's been very successful. The audience reaction is tremendous, and it is awesome and hilarious, as you pointed out. It is those things. The show is about saying yes to life. It's an affirmation. It's about passion. It's about the things that we should be doing in our lives. And I'm giving you some examples. And the things I talk about are like lowland gorillas, and then I talk about motorcycles, and then I talk about music and comedy and love and hate and Star Trek and all those kinds of things. I have a variety of things I talk about, but I talk about them, but they're all about passions and about things that we should do and can do and what I've done.
So if our listeners are hearing this and they show up, even if they show up looking for laughs, they'll laugh, but also get a little take on life, the Shatner model in life here. All right.
There you go. They'll be entertained for the entire length of time, I promise you.
All right. Now, supposedly this thing, your act includes anecdotes, songs, and jokes. But what are some of the anecdotes you might?
The anecdotes are about my mother trying to encourage me and how funny she was and what my reaction was, or a radio producer giving me the part of the Jewish father, and I tell my mother, I got the part of the Jewish father. My mother grabbed me and says, "You tell that producer you want a speaking part." That's the kind of thing so it's from my life, and it's true, but they're funny. And then at the end, Brad Paisley wrote a song for me in an album that I did called Has Been, and I do a song from Has Been. But mostly it's like I'm talking to you, and I'm keeping you engaged. I engage the audience, and I never let go. And it's a moment in the theater that's very, very unusual. And the individual, the people coming to the theater will have, I think, a unique experience with me.
Definitely. And you mentioned Brad Paisley. Didn't you previously, before this song, appear in one of his videos? I think it was online.
I did. Over the years, Brad and I have become good friends, and we help each other out in various ways. Like right now, I need an entertainer, a Western singer for my charity show, which is in June, and everybody's reluctant to commit because that's when they go on tour in the summertime. So I've enlisted Brad to find me somebody he knows that will sing for charity.
In addition to Paisley, you also recorded "Seeking Major Tom," which has now has David Bowie.
I know, but and that's an album that did very well. People should take a look at it. My version of "Seeking Major Tom."
Yeah, you also had songs by U2, Sinatra, Queen, Pink Floyd, the whole gamut on that album.
I did an album with that had cover songs from space. It was the concept was seeking Major Tom, and in seeking Major Tom, who jumps out of the spaceship, "I'm leaving," he says in the lyrics, and where does he find himself in that? We go find Major Tom in space.
Were you a big Bowie fan? Is that why you named it that, or just fitting?
I took his song. Yes, I was a big Bowie fan. He was incredible. In fact, I was watching last night. They had a documentary on. I was watching it and just remembered how wonderful he was. What a singer he was. My God. Yeah. What a dramatic voice he had.
And speaking of people we've lost, I guess has it been a year, almost a year since Leonard Nimoy? You still miss him to this day?
Yes, indeed. And I've got a book called Leonard coming out in about 3 or 4 weeks. Kirkus Review has already given it a rave, and I think it's going to be wonderfully received. Leonard, my 50-year friendship with a remarkable man, and I talk about friendship in general and how difficult it is for many men, myself included, to make friends due to a number of circumstances. Women seem to do it more easily, whether it's cultural or genetic. I don't know, but for me, Leonard was that brother, that friend, and to lose him is a severe loss.
What are some of those reasons, you think? I mean, you hear of guys going out, hanging out all the time, but why do you think it
guys
is?
Guys hang out all the time and have a beer, but is that a great friend? I don't know.
Right.
What do you think?
No, I think usually if you think about it, there's a lot of those folks in your life where the hang out, grab a beer type. But you're right. There's a rare few where you can count on.
And what is the definition? Is it a guy you can go to and say, "I'm in trouble, I need your help," and he drops everything and does it? A lot of people, myself included, won't drop everything. You can't, but you might for a close relative, your father, your mother, your sister, your brother. You might do that. Do you have a friend that enters into that category?
Yeah, William Shatner.
There you go. I'd help you anywhere.
Well, what do you think it was that made Leonard that for you? Why did you guys buy him?
When you do a show, when you do a play, a movie, or a television series, you're thrust into each other's company for the longest time, 18 hours a day, and you develop friendships, you develop a relationship, and you're fighting a war, so you're buddies, like buddies are in war. Mm-hmm. The show is canceled, one way, the play, the movie, the series, and that best friend forever goes off to another job, as you do, or somewhere, and you lose contact with each other because the show is over. In Leonard's case, we were thrust into each other's company by the fact that we made 6 movies together, and then we did a lot of personal appearances together. So suddenly, instead of losing contact, I'm in closer contact with him than ever before, and that evolved into the friendship I talk about in the book Leonard, which will be out
definitely
a couple of weeks.
And we've seen a bit of a resurgence in we're talking about you and Spock, but we've seen a resurgence largely thanks to J.J. Abrams with the new Star Trek, and then obviously Star Wars is just dominating the box office right and left. What's your take on sort of not just the Star Trek reboot, but also Star Wars and just the hunger of sci-fi fans of a new generation?
Sci-fi, through the imagination of the authors, tries to answer inexplicable questions. Are there UFOs? Are life after death? Beings on other planets? All the stuff we can't answer. An imaginative writer tries to answer it, and it evokes our imagination. So we take it on faith. We take it as though it were mythology, and indulge in that mythology. That's the secret behind science fiction. It's why I find myself writing science fiction and loving reading it.
Yeah, definitely. And hopefully we'll have not just sci-fi fans, but a bunch of fans of all stripes showing up to Warner Theater here.
If they want to be entertained in a unique fashion and have a wonderful evening with me, come to the Warner Theater.
Is this your first time playing Warner Theater?
I believe so. Usually what happens is I come into town, they drive me to the back door entrance. I get into the dressing room, I get dressed, and I go on stage. Mm-hmm. I do a sound check, so I look the theater over, and then I go on stage. And then like on this tour that I'm doing, I leave the theater, I get in a car, and I may very well be driving to the next venue in a couple of places, because I'm doing 13 cities. A couple of places I've rented a car, and Lucky Dave Memory and he's running the show backstage, and I get in the car, and we drive to the next venue. The whole thing on touring is not the show. It's getting to the venue.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, speaking of getting to the venue, driving in the car and everything else, maybe our town's quarterback will hear this interview and show up to Warner Theater and be in the audience.
I admire Kirk Cousins. I wish he would come.
From one Captain Kirk to another.
Exactly.
All right, Mr. Shatner, thank you so much. You're
Jason,
generous with your time.
a pleasure to talk to you. I hope you'll be at the theater.
All right, yeah, we'll see you there.
Bye-bye.
Everybody, William Shatner on WTOP.
Thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Remember to hit the subscribe button and give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time. I wanted to take a second to tell you about an app I really enjoy. Living in the DC area is great, and Podcast DC gathers all of the local shows that I like all in one local app. Health, sports, local news, politics, and so much more. Podcast DC is the new local app with hundreds of DC area podcasts to choose from. I can earn exciting rewards just for listening and share the podcasts I love instantly. Available in the App Store or in Google Play, listen local with Podcast DC.